So I made a video talking about how that Donald Trump is a hypocrite in every aspect of his life. Whether he's standing for something or against something, he's a hypocrite about it. And no sooner than I got that video released, I stumbled across this clip of him showing another classic case of his glaring hypocrisy. Here Donald Trump says he backs the blue and no one loves law enforcement more than him. Actually, he's just using the death of Jonathan Tiller in New York as a way to have more political theater because that's all he knows. Take a look at this clip.
They're not given the respect. The police are the greatest people we have. There's nothing and there's nobody like them, and this should never happen. I just visited with a very beautiful wife that now doesn't have her husband. Stephanie was just incredible. Their child, brand new, beautiful baby, sitting there innocent as can be. Doesn't know how his life has been changed. But the Diller family you'll never be the same. You can never be the same. And we have to stop it. We have to stop it. We have to get back to law and order. We have to do a lot of things differently because this is not working. This is happening too often.
Now, there may be some people out there dumb enough to fall for that line of bullshit, but we're not going to, because we're the ones that saw him stand up, change the national anthem, have it sung by the January 6th insurrectionists, and call them hostages. You guys remember this?
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the horribly and unfairly treated January 6th hostages.
You cannot back the blue when you stand there and let domestic terrorists change the national anthem and you salute that and you call them patriots and hostages. That's not backing the blue. And when Donald Trump was asked about Officer Michael Byrd, who shot Ashley Babbitt, who was breaking into the Capitol, Donald Trump called him a thug and accused him of bragging about the whole thing. Take a look at this clip.
Going back to your influence, in that 3 hours, over 140 officers were injured that day.
And a person named Ashley Babbitt was killed.
Yes.
You know what? She was killed, and she shouldn't have been killed. And that thug that killed her, there was no reason to shoot her. At blank range, cold blank range, they shot her, and she was a good person. She was a patriot. There was no reason. And he went on television to brag about the fact that he killed her.
The officer was not bragging about the fact that he killed her, but
bragging.
one person who was...
So when Donald Trump was talking about the men who killed Officer Jonathan Tiller in New York, he referred to them as thugs, and there he is referring to a law enforcement officer as a thug for doing his job, for defending the Capitol on that day. Donald Trump does not back the blue, and we're not going to let him sit here and slide on this one. Donald Trump has never came out and held a press conference and said anything about Brian Sicknick, the officer who passed away the following day after January 6th. Anytime he's ever talked about the officers defending the Capitol, it's been to say that they didn't do the job they were supposed to do. That's how sick and deranged and twisted this dude is, and we cannot continue to normalize this. But now I'm going to play you a clip that really matters. I'm going to play you a clip from Officer Daniel Hodges, and let's hear him talk about what he witnessed that day on January 6th, and then ask yourself, when did Donald Trump ever come to this guy's aid? Take a look at this.
To my perpetual confusion, I saw the thin blue line flag, a symbol of support for law enforcement, more than once being carried by the terrorists as they ignored our commands and continued to assault us. The acrid sting of CS gas or tear gas and OC spray, which is mace, hung in the air as the terrorists threw our own CS gas canisters back at us and sprayed us with their own OC. Either they bought themselves or stole from us. Later, I learned at least one of them was spraying us in the face with wasp spray. The terrorists alternated between attempting to break our defenses and shouting at or attempting to convert us. Men alleging to be veterans told us how they had fought for this country and were fighting for it again. One man tried to start a chant of 4 more years. Another shouted, "Do not attack us, we're not Black Lives Matter," as if political affiliation is how we determine when to use force. A man in a QAnon hoodie exclaims, "This is the time to choose which side of history to be on." A man whose shirt read, "God, guns, and Trump" stood behind him, silently holding a Trump flag. A new man came to the front and fixated on me, continually berating me, telling me to take off my gear and give it to him, to show solidarity with we the people, or we're gonna run over you. His voice cracked with the strain and the volume of his threats. He continued, "Do you think your little pea shooter guns are going to stop this crowd? No, we're going in that building." Eventually, there is a surge in the crowd. The fence buckled and broke apart, and we were unable to hold the line. A chaotic melee ensued. Terrorists pushed through the line and engaged us in hand-to-hand combat. Several attempted to knock me over and steal my baton. One latched onto my face and got his thumb in my right eye, attempting to gouge it out. I cried out in pain and managed to shake him off. Before any permanent damage was done.
So yeah, when has Donald Trump said one word about Daniel Hodges? When has he offered any condolences to the officers that day who had to endure what they had to endure because he wasn't man enough to accept the fact that he lost an election? Why wasn't he back in the blue when it come to Daniel Hodges? I'll tell you why. Because he's grifting off the police now, just like he's grifted off Bibles and everything else that he's tried to pawn off and hawk. That's all the man is capable of. That's all he's good at. The only thing Donald Trump is good at is grifting. And he's realized that if you sit and repeat a talking point over and over again, that your followers will buy into it and they'll whittle it down, put it on a bumper sticker, put it on a flag, fly it off their boat, and believe it like it's gospel. But what's so funny to me about this whole back the blue idea is they only back the blue when it suits their needs. But if law and order is coming down on their head, suddenly the whole system is rigged against them, and they're all thugs and they're all bad guys suddenly. And as someone who grew up in the 1980s, right on the East Tennessee, East Kentucky line, when I was growing up, rednecks around here and good old boys around here did not get along with law enforcement. As a matter of fact, the number one show we watched growing up as kids in this part of the world was called The Dukes of Hazzard, which was a story about good old boys running from the law. And I cannot count the times in my life that I've been playing a gig somewhere in one of these backwoods dive bars, and I'm playing, and somebody will walk up to me and go, "Hey, man, come here a minute. Hey, get on the microphone and tell them there's a roadblock down there at Pete's store. They better turn before they get there because they're down there harassing us. We're just trying to have a good time, man. They're harassing us." If they ever came into the bar to check people's IDs, "Well, they're here harassing us for, man." But then when they saw the officer put his knee in George Floyd's neck, they suddenly changed their tune and said, "Oh, well, he should have complied." And one time I was making a video talking about Breonna Taylor, and I talked about how she was shot in her sleep, and I had people chime in to say, "Oh, fact check, Brando. She didn't die in her sleep, buddy. She heard the gunshots and she got up and run down the hall. She should have just complied." And when I point out the glaring racism and all that, I get told that I'm woke, and I get told that I have a mind virus, and I get told that I'm sick in the head, and I get told to loosen my bandana. That's how ridiculous that the whole thing has gotten, and that's why that when I see Donald Trump come out and speak about a slain police officer, my heart don't feel warm and fuzzy inside. I'm truly sorry for the officer that lost his life, and I do have respect for law enforcement. But I also think it's disrespectful as hell for him to turn an officer's death into another political hit job and another way to make it all about his Biden derangement syndrome, because that's what he has. It's absolutely sickening. And by the time I get done making this video and I get off the phone and I go, "Hey, let's see what else is going on in the world," he will have more examples of his glaring hypocrisy. I'm like Weird Al at this point, just sitting back waiting for somebody to write a song so I can make a parody. That's my world now. I just sit back and wait for Donald Trump to fuck up, and that's every 5 minutes, so I'm a busy man.